a lot of the people who watch the stuff we do, listen to what we do, they're very curious about how they can improve their health, and that's great. But there's two other segments of people that we've learned about recently, and they actually have like a lot of questions. And when we do IG lives or whatever, they're the ones who are asking questions. It's not just patients or Baker Health members who are asking, "What can I do to improve my health?" But it's actually people within healthcare. Healthcare is the second largest employer in the country, right? And if you expand that to include fitness and gyms in a broader definition, it actually exceeds the number one employer, which is the governor. So there's more people working in healthcare or fitness or wellness in the country than anything else. And so we get a lot of questions from people who are a personal trainer or some doctor who's starting out or some healthcare administrator or some nurse who are like, hey, I'm treating people this way. I went into this to do the right thing. I'm into fitness or wellness or health, but I'm like 5 years into my career and it's not working. Like I'm not making people better. There's that second segment. And then the third segment is on the business side. So as you said, this is a huge industry, right? Unfortunately, and I don't know so much specifically about fitness, so you could comment. I could talk about the medical industry. While there's a ton of people doing it, the vast majority are doing it the wrong way or for the wrong reasons. And you could speak more about your side. I'd be curious about that. But those are the three segments of populations. And obviously, they're not mutually exclusive, right? There's a guy who's a nurse who also is into fitness and wants to do better.
Sure.
And so to start off, I just want to start off at a very high level. Take the average guy or the average gal. And I want to do that because, look, if there's someone who's already super into fitness, it's not that they're not going to benefit from this conversation, but maybe the delta for how much they benefit is not the same as the average person who is always thinking about being healthier every day. They're making like sporadic decisions every now and again, or they got their cousin's wedding in a month and they're like, I'm going to get into shape, or they had an injury and they're like, man, I just got to take better care of myself, but they just can't get it right. Like, and you guys are very elite at what you do. So this might be difficult for you, but I'd just like to ask you, like, take the 31-year-old guy or gal who's dabbled in health and fitness, but is 25 pounds beyond what they want to be, feels 25% crappier than they did 10 years ago. What's a practical way to start and kind of have some kind of maintenance regimen?
So what I would say is, I think that it's a dose balance issue for a lot of people. So what I would say is, like you said, there may not be people that are doing, oh, I'm all fitness, that may not benefit from certain things. The fact is, I think the people that are so centered on fitness, they actually might benefit from taking half a step back. They might be overdoing it. As we know, like exercise and all of this is a stressful thing that we're introducing into our lives. And what we're doing is effectively stress management across the board, whether we're talking about your work environment, your relationships, how you're exercising, how you're eating, how you're thinking about how you're eating, what the relationship is with your sleep, with other things you might be leaning into when it comes to helping relieve some of that stress that they believe. I think what we can do is create more realistic targets for what we want to do around fitness, knowing that we don't have to be in the gym 7 days a week to see benefits of what we want to do. We don't have to work out for 60 minutes of hardcore high intensity interval training in order to see benefits from what we're getting with exercise. I think resetting the standard of what can actually be accomplished with 3-4 days a week of training and consistently doing that, I think is a massive benefit. So even for the baseline client that's like, hey, I don't know what to do, my response is always, this country would be in a much better place if we took a Rocky Balboa approach to exercise and ran a mile a day and did some push-ups and sit-ups, but did that consistently. And if you just did that, you're probably in a much better position than a large percentage of people that are in this country that are exercising. But we think that we have to set to these standards that are so intricate and I need to learn these specific things, where I think it's more of a societal issue that I'm sure we'll discuss later on why we don't know how to exercise and express movement literacy in the way that we should. But the fact is, I think that for the 31-year-old that feels like they're out of touch with some of these things, there's the component of learning what's the expectation to do that. So I always say an easy target is work out more days than you don't. So if we're talking about 7 days a week, if you're working out 4 days a week, you're doing more than you're not. And we have to start to look at fitness in the same way we do with any other hygienic thing, right? So if we're talking about taking a shower or brushing your teeth or any of that kind of stuff, going through an exercise or movement routine on a daily basis is that for your body. You just don't see the natural effects of it on the outside, but you may feel it on a day-to-day basis. You may feel it in the way that you sleep or how you interact or how you process foods throughout the day, or all these things over time that could degrade how your overall health is. But because it's not a visual thing, you're not necessarily attached to it in the same way. I think that we need to start to re-standardize what the expectations of fitness, and it might be a more modest approach than most people are actually looking at.
I'm going to ask a follow-up, and maybe, David, what you said triggered something that you said in a way I never heard of it, but it's something I live every day, but you gave me a different perspective. And Kenny, you could comment on this. You said fitness literacy and why the country is kind of in the state it is. And while you're saying that, I'm sitting with two fitness experts, and, don't take this the wrong way. It's not an insult on you as much as the country, us together as a community. But when I was a kid, or when we were kids, there weren't that many gyms, but we were a much more fit society. Now there's a lot more gyms, there's a lot more fitness apps. Shit, there's wearable. I don't know somebody who doesn't have a wearable, but our society's less fit than ever, physically and mentally. And I'm a pediatrician, sure, background, so I take care of kids. When I was a kid, 5 days a week, you had recess, meaning you didn't just have lunch. You actually went outside. I mean, I remember I'd go to like math class in the afternoon drenched in sweat, like I'd stink because I was outside running, and that wasn't gym. Yeah. Then you had gym class, and then you got basketball practice for 2 hours. Then you come home, do your homework, and then you're outside at the park for 2 hours. That was typical. And so, I don't think that that's disconnected from the way we are now. I take care of kids. My own kids go to school. Gym is like once a week, recess, whatever. They don't run around outside. Sure. And then of course, when you come home, you're not going out to the park, you're in front of YouTube or whatever, you're in front of the screen. So that fitness literacy and just society as a whole, it's a little ironic, right? This fitness movement is at a peak, but fitness is at an all-time low. What do you think? A lot of people try to crack this. What do you think the issue is? Is it like systemic? Is it more societal, or each person has to own their own kind of journey?
I think it's absolutely societal. I think nowadays the people who want to be fit are becoming even more fit, right? Everybody, I'm guessing in this room, is somebody who's dove deeper into the pool than we ever have before, just because we work in the industry, we're involved in it. And then the people who see that on the outskirts don't want to get involved. I mean, it's part of the reason why I created the event, was to get these people who are on the fence about it, who are like, I want to do it, but I don't know where to start, and there's so much shit out there, so I don't know where to go. So I tried to create this more friendly user approach to all these things. And it doesn't matter what you're doing. Just like you said, your recess isn't a structured kind of play area. They're just moving and chasing each other around and doing that. And then you go to gym class and you're playing some sport, and it's probably different day in and day out. So it's just, there's a lack of movement, right? We're on our phones more, we're on the computer more. We've become more of a sedentary society, and it's more the norm, right? When there used to be jobs when I was a kid, one of the first jobs I got was I was mowing lawns and stuff. So for 5, 6, 7 hours a day on a Saturday in the summer, I'm pushing a lawnmower, or I'm doing things, and I was still overweight because I was eating like shit all the time. But there wasn't a focus on fitness. It was just kind of continue to move. Now it's like people don't do that anymore. So I think it's definitely a societal shift that we've seen in the last 15 to 20 years. That we didn't have iPads, we didn't have phones, there wasn't a way to get in touch with us. Just like you were saying when you were mentioning that, a friend of mine and I were talking the other day, and I was saying, my brother calls his kids every 5 minutes. We would leave the house and wouldn't come back until the sun came down. Like, you were gone for hours walking around, biking around, doing things. So there was more activity in years past, and now we just don't have that anymore. And I think it's a societal thing. It's like, oh, my son's away from me for 10 minutes. Let me call him on his phone. Like, let them be kids,
100%. And you mentioned nutrition briefly. I want to get into nutrition, but just picking up what you just said, Kenny, a guy that was senior to me when I was training, I ran into him. I hadn't seen him in a long time. And then he came in with like his kid. They moved in. I saw this guy. I hadn't seen him since like training. And we were messing around. Actually, he's trying to write a book, and his perspective is just what you said, like kind of how it's actually more related, meaning the overparenting and the surveillance is actually related to like the physical related. And the way he put it, he made a very interesting remark. He said, you know what the problem is? He said, the problem is when we were kids, every week he'd show up to class and like Jimmy had a cast on because he cracked his elbow falling off the jungle gym, or Samantha had like a cast on her foot because she hurt herself playing track. He's like, now you'll be in school for a year and nobody has a cast. He's like, because nobody's taking risk behavior, nobody's physically acted enough, pushing themselves enough to do it. And he said, you know what's and he goes, and they're not taking risky behavior. So we have more obesity and more anxiety because people are doing. And he's like, give me a kid with a cast any day. He's like, if every kid had a cast now, we'd be better off. And it's kind of a dramatic way to put it, but the point he's making is similar to what you were just saying. On the nutrition front, I find the nutrition topic interesting. Most of the folks that I know that are in the fitness industry are very upfront, and maybe you disagree, but they're pretty upfront. They're like, listen, the physical fitness thing is critical. You got to do X, Y, Z. You go through the whole thing, but what you eat is even more critical. You can run all day, but if you're eating crap before and after, it's not going to help you the way it needs to. And they're very upfront about that. And there's nutritionists. The interesting thing is when I work with a lot of nutritionists, and we have them in our practice, baked into our practice, there's a limitation to what they could offer in terms of physical fitness. But the folks that I'm friends with in the fitness industry actually are very informed on nutrition, right? And they can kind of say, well, what exactly you're looking to get? Do you want to be more lean? You want to bulk up? Blah blah blah. Can you spend a little bit of time? And I know I want to be respectful of your time. I want to get to the business stuff. I want to get to how you become an advisor in whatever you're doing. Maybe it's not fitness, but can you each give your perspective? I'd be really curious on where nutrition fits in all this.
Nutrition's a critical role. There's just a fundamental difference between knowing and doing. That's the same thing with physical fitness as well. Like, we know we need to work out, but you got to do it.
Yeah.
Right. So everyone knows what to eat. Like, we have the primary question that if a client comes in, they're like, well, I want to know what I need to eat. It's like, okay, well, are salads good or bad for you? Well, they're good for you. Okay. Are chocolate cookies good or bad for you? Oh, they're bad for you. Okay. So then this isn't a matter of knowing what you want to eat. It's a matter of adhering to what you want to eat. Right. Now, I think there's obviously this very specific nature of looking at, like, okay, if someone's dealing with, a metabolic disease that they might have to have very specific nutritional advice to, yes, you should be going to a professional for that. But when it comes to diets, there's, many ways to go about it. There's many roads to lead the Rome, right? So you can go about that nutrition in many different ways, depending on what's best for you. And I think it actually ties into some of the question of what you guys were discussing before, which is the main thing that has adjusted our landscape is just technology. It's simply that. It's a very easy answer of just technology. Because now we have social media where the approach is now focusing on fitness from a look perspective and not necessarily the feeling and the ability and the capabilities and all that kind of stuff. Because of technology, food is just much better, much tastier, much highly caloric, much more processed. Expectations for fitness and what you're able to do has just been raised. Stimulus has been raised. So there's a lot of cool things I can do that I don't have to move around and do uncomfortable things. I don't have to ride my bike to my friend's house to get to my friend's house. Like, technology has absolutely transformed the landscape of it. And because of that, now we have people that are our age that are unaware of how to teach younger generations on how to eat, how to move, how to go about things. And people that don't know can't teach what they don't know. So it's a big mission of mine, and I know of Kenny's because we've known each other for years, to get people the information they need to be successful about it in whatever capacity they need to. Because if we don't teach our generation, they can't teach the next generation. And then there's zero expectation for someone to grab it. So if I don't pass the baton, the baton's gonna drop. So it's really on our shoulders to, if we want to take care of that next generation, we have to do it with our actions, by showing them how it's done, by teaching them how it's done, by creating realistic expectations. That starts with nutrition, that starts with fitness, that goes across the board.
Kenny, just on the nutrition theme, anything to add? And I know it's case by case, I get that, but I do think, like, if you guys could share just some fundamentals, like, sure, it's case by case. Like, I'm a night shift worker, like I'm a truck driver or a nurse who works overnight, or a cop. So maybe my whatever, I need this, or I run a lot of marathons. Like, I get that, but some basic fundamentals, like drinking water instead of the juices and the concert, which the energy drinks, how late your last meal should be, or does that not matter? Just fundamentals.
I think what a lot of people don't realize, and I'm empathetic towards people who are overweight because I was once overweight myself. I definitely did struggle with it. I think people don't realize how much of it is a chemical and an emotional response to a lot of things. So you have to understand that before you could start to say, hey, I want to do this, because everybody wants to be in shape. If I asked everybody in here, oh, do you want to look like Chris Bumstead? We'd be like, yeah. Are you willing to do what Chris Bumstead does to look like that? Probably not. So it's the same thing. Are you willing to do what you have to do to make yourself better? Because we, like you said, I mean, we all know what to eat. We're running a challenge here at both of my gyms, and everybody's like, well, I want to ask the nutritionist what I should eat. Just like you said, we all know what to eat, right? If you want to really look good, eat egg whites, grilled chicken, and a little bit of rice every once in a while, and you'll look great. Right. But do you want to? You're not willing to make that sacrifice. So we need to find a mid ground where you feel like, okay, I'm satisfying that emotional response and that chemical response in my body, as well as now I'm moving forward. I'm moving the needle forward. And why most people fail at the beginning of the year is because they want to take on this huge task. I'm going to go to the gym 5 days a week and I'm going to eat better. My advice to everybody, I just started training a guy. He's 48 years old. He's never worked out a day in his life. He just sold his company. He's got all this money and all the time. And he's like, I want to start coming in 5 days a week. I go, it's been 47 fucking years. You've never done it in your life. What makes you think right now you're going to start? Let's do 1 day a week. Yeah, but I want to do more. I know you want to do more. That's great. I'm excited for you. Let's start with 1. And from 1, we'll go to 2 and 3. And then we'll talk about diet. Because you can't overhaul all these things at one time because it's too much for anybody. Yeah. It's like coming in here and I'm like, I put 400 pounds on the bar and you're like, I want to lift it up. It's like, all right, go ahead. It's not going to work out. So we got to gradually move into these things. So I think with a lot of people, it's like slowly pulling things away and putting other things in is the best way to approach it. Somebody who's addicted to eating potato chips and drinking soda, you don't just rip it out of their diet. You want to gradually give them either better options, right? Oh, I drink Mountain Dew. All right, let's give them an Olipop for the next couple weeks and see how they do with that. And then wean them off a lot of the things that they have this emotional attachment to.
And I have 2 questions for you. Can you just say a little bit more about when you were talking about the empathy and how there's a chemical kind of response there? Can you go a little deeper on that?
Yeah, I think a lot of people think that, oh, okay, if I just start doing this thing, I'm going to, I'd say 99% of people who have some sort of issue with whether it's weight loss or weight gain, there's an emotional response there. They relate their mind when they see food, because I know I've been like this. It's almost like party time. It's like, oh, I feel good. It makes me feel happier. If you ever watch My 600-Pound Life is a perfect example. These people feel warm and cozy and comfortable when there's food around and they could eat. That probably stems from some psychological issue or something that happened to them in their early childhood, and now that carries through with them. So I think you need to tackle those issues a lot sooner, because just to be like, and some people are machines like that. You could be like, hey, I want you to eat egg whites and grilled chicken for the next 3 weeks, and they'll do it. But very few people could do that, and that's not sustainable. Right? Eventually you're going to resort back. I had friends who did bodybuilding shows, won bodybuilding shows, and now they're massive, 60, 70 pounds overweight, because it had such a trigger for them not being allowed to eat these things. Right. So you have to figure out what the psychological component is. For me, I felt the same way. I was Italian. It's like we always celebrated around food. So it was always a time for me to be like, oh, if I'm in a bad mood, I'll eat because that'll make me feel better. But in reality, now I understand, like eating cake and soda and things like that, it doesn't in fact, it makes me feel worse. I know what the effects are on my stomach, on my brain, on the way I'm going to feel for the next 6 hours. So educating people on what the actual response will be towards your body, but also tackling that. And it's a lot more complex. And you just said, it's the #1 career. If you lumped it all together, we would talk about hundreds of millions of people all working on the same thing. So if there was an easy answer, we wouldn't need all these people working
Right.
on it.
Right. And to your point, what I always see, like I grew up in my parents were immigrants. And so it's like, finish your plate. Like, you're lucky to have this, blah, blah, blah. Like, I remember like it was, I'd be in North Bergen and like, and I mean, you know how that is. And like, and you know, you're like, shit, yeah, that, you don't want to waste like, you know, this, that. And now when I have families that come to me and they're like, Dr. Baker, I'm done with the visit. Like, you give the shots, you do whatever you do, blah, blah, blah. Like, Dr. Baker, can you tell Samantha, let's say Samantha's 5 years old. Can you tell Samantha how important it is that she doesn't just snack and she sits down and eats a full meal? And I'm like stuck because, you know, I'm about to like side with the 5-year-old over the parent. And they're like, Dr. Baker, all she does is like pick. Like, sometimes she'll have some nuts. Then I'm like, so when you say snacks, like Snickers and like stuff like that? No, like she'll have like, you know, edamame and she'll have like healthy. I'm like, oh, okay. And snacks like soda pop and no, she actually loves water, but you know, she just doesn't eat. And I'm like, I hate how many times I say, I hate to say this to you, Mom. She's got it right and we got it wrong. Like, you know, like, but sometimes Dr. Baker, how is it possible? She goes to sleep and she like didn't finish a whole dinner. I'm like, but she's fine, right? And how do me and you feel when we wake up? You know, we're the ones dragging ass. And so I think what you're saying, the connection, like that's very insightful. Like that's something that, you know, most guys in fitness or most doctors or whatever, they don't go into. They're like, hey, eat this, don't eat that. And you're right. We all know the answers, right? But I think that understanding and maybe pulling ourselves out of it and seeing us and that relationship with food or whatever, or that chemical reaction is kind of nirvana. That's like the breakthrough, is to actually see it. So then you can kind of say, no, I'm not going to do that. Or maybe I'm going to surround myself with better options. Or I know I get hungry at this time, whatever.
And that's how you dive deeper into it, right? You have to figure out who they are, what their triggers are, what their lifestyle looks like, who they're hanging out with. It's a deeper dive than most people think. Yeah. You know, if it's called personal training, because you really need to personally understand where this person's coming from, who they're hanging out with, who their spouse is. Like, a lot of that comes into play.
Right. And I want to get into the business side now, because I think, you know, we've done a decent job of covering some of the main health tips, but one more kind of on the fitness side. There's this, what you said earlier is very true. The fitness people are getting more into fitness. And what's happening is, like, I have 2 teenage boys. They're into very competitive basketball, right? Like, there isn't a weekend their mom doesn't have them in like Orlando at some AAU tournament or whatever, right? And them and their friends now, I mean, I played sports when I was growing up, right? But we didn't have like 13 coaches on the bench. You would think they were in the NBA with how many like specialized, it's crazy, which is in many ways good. But I get a lot of families that come in with like their 12-year-old, 13-year-old boy or girl, competitive softball player, competitive whatever. And they start asking me about, when is it safe to start really kind of lifting weights? That's really the question. Like, they know it's okay if the guy starts running track or whatever, but he's 12. Can he start lifting weights? And Dr. Baker, I'm a little nervous. He's 13. He's like a serious wrestler. And he's like, he's measuring his protein portions. Is that good? Is that bad? Can you give some healthy advice there, David?
I would say, and this is a tough pill to swallow for a lot of people, parents ruin a lot of stuff for kids. Whether it is their relationship with food, whether it is how they work out, whether it is a lot of these expectation aspects. One of the more damaging things I hear is when parents come to me with their 12, 13, 14-year-old and they're like, they're a little overweight. They're, you know, what do we have to do with them? It's like, they're going through puberty. Everyone's been through it. It's a very awkward stage. Like, allow them to go through this without the shame that's getting thrown onto it by parents of making them diet. There's nothing more depressing than seeing a young kid on a recumbent bike. I mean, the fact is, kids can start weight training as young as 5 to 7 years old. All of the myths that have been around for children and weight training have been debunked for decades by now. Yeah. And anybody that wants information on that kind of stuff can seek out Dr. Avery Feigenbaum. He is the foremost leading researcher on pediatric exercise physiology, and he's based out of the College of New Jersey. But when it comes down to that and creating these things, like when that happens, I always ask parents, well, do your kids play on the jungle gym? Oh yeah, what do? They go on the monkey bars, they jump off, do they ever jump from the swings? Yeah. Okay, they're doing plyometrics, they're doing heavy upper body pulling, they're doing joint demanding tension. They're in a position to strength train. Now then the primary question is, when do they strength train? When they can take responsibility and respect in the gym, when they can listen to tasks and understand that they need to be safe and effective in the gym, that's when someone can strength train. So I don't care if the kid is 8 years old or 18 years old. If they can't respect their body and themselves and the weight room, they shouldn't be in it until they can get to that point of understanding that I'm lifting heavy weight. I could potentially hurt myself if I don't do this appropriately. When they get to that phase, give them the green light. But around a lot of diet, nutrition, fitness, sports specifically, most of the sports games that get ruined at those sports are not necessarily the kids playing, it's the parents arguing in the stands. The kids that are going into the gym or don't know what to eat and are like, hey, let's go to the doctor and let's ask him what we think. A lot of those relationships that we're talking about with nutrition can be potentially tainted by parents just not having a good awareness around that or not addressing their own concerns or information around that. So I say that not to put too much on parents, but as a parent myself, I know that I have a very direct correlation of what my daughter's expectations are through life, by the way that I act, by the way that I interact, by the way that I work out, I eat, I look at foods, I comment on what she has, that all that stuff matters. Yeah. So I want parents to understand that what I say and do has lifetime implications on what we may see for them.
Yeah, for sure. And I know this has been a great conversation. I know you guys are busy dudes. I want to get to the business, personal development side of this, because even though this is a huge industry, there's very, very few who have accomplished what each of you has accomplished. I'm a physician. I've managed physicians, I've put groups together, and it's a whole different skill set when you kind of are responsible for one patient or one client versus when you have an idea and you're like, I think I could bring this to more people. That's a whole different skill set, right? And so there's a lot of similarity there. David, you've basically created a personal brand and you're an advisor. I mean, men's health is something that every guy I know has at some point come across. It's kind of some people are into Sports Illustrated, like they're not hardcore sports. Some people are into whatever, Max and whatever, but that's a perpendicularity where it's like common sense fitness for guys. And if you want to go hard, there's like hard articles, but there's also practical stuff. It's super relatable and you advise them and you have a relationship with them and writing books. I guess you could take this in kind of whatever tributary you want, but what was your journey from one day, doing good work for one guy or one gal and saying, I want to get the word out at scale? And how did you come to do that? And basically, if you don't mind, just answer it like maybe there's somebody in the restaurant industry, right? Who's a damn good chef. They're a great chef. And they're like, I want to do a recipe book, or I want to get the word out, or I want to open a couple of restaurants up. Can you talk about kind of the courage and the foresight there?
Sure. So what I would say is I became a training manager when I was in my early 20s, and I realized at that point that I liked affecting the clients that I had, but my way of affecting more clients and more people was by coaching the coaches on how they can interact and navigate with those client relationships. So that built up to the largest facility I oversaw was on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. I had 72 coaches on staff. We had 750 clients in our training department, and I had relationships with all those people, and I knew that my impact was through that. I also read a book by Keith Ferrazzi called Never Eat Alone. It's all about, you have to ask for what you want.
Has to read that book.
Right? It's a great book. And I think for that, it's one of those things to realize, like, I have to put myself out there in order to, if I want something, I got to ask for it. And it's knowing, am I in the right position to do so? And can I do from that? The last one I think is a really, people laugh when I tell them where I learned this last piece from, but I got into writing by, my first articles for Muscle and Fitness. The former chief editor for them, Sean Perrine, was a mentor of mine and gave me my first shot of writing an article for them. But I learned my best piece of advice that I give to coaches from the show Entourage. So Ari Gold used to always tell Vinny Chase, always tell your next movie before you finish your last. And whenever I would start a project, I would then start connecting with other people and saying, hey, I did this project for X brand. Is there something I could do for you? And then those nods of approval then catapult into more things and more things and more things. And over that time, what I've found is I've built quite a network of people that I know me and can trust me. That's the more important piece of it. And can trust that if I say I'm going to do something, I'll do it. They trust that if I don't know the answer, I'm not going to tell them some nonsense and I'm going to give them a straightforward answer. Which is why, like, when it comes to circles like this, like, I've seen Kenny in 15, 20 different scenarios, and They're all around fitness. So when we bump into each other, it's like, I know that if Kenny's talking to someone, I can trust them, because if they know Kenny, which a lot of people know Kenny, if they know Kenny, then it's someone that I know he has checked off and vouched for. And I think if you're looking to expand in that, you got to understand that no matter what industry you're in the relationship industry. And people trust people, they don't trust resumes. So I trust the person that's in front of me. I trust them when I had that conversation. If I have someone that is in my network that I know I rely on, that's how I can build that. But it all does start, like that book with Keith Ferrazzi, it does start in the relationships and your willingness to ask of things.
Yeah, and Kenny, before I get to you, because you have a hell of a journey too in terms of this, but I think you said a lot there, and I think you brushed over like really big things that you've done, right? And you talk about the network, you talk about now there's an anxiety and there's an apprehension of just doing it. Like I think somebody might listen to what you said and say, yeah, of course, the more successful people I know in my industry, the more opportunities will open up for me to do cool things. I get that. But like literally, how do I start? Like, what do I do? Like, I think I have a lot to say about hospitality, or I think I have a lot to say about acting, or I have a family, the husband and wife are teachers, and there's an online thing called Khan Academy, which like blew up like a few years ago. And they're like, I see this problem, like kids not doing well in math, everybody knows it, and I have this way to do it. And they're asking for advice. And I'm like, dude, I'm not in your thing. I don't know. But what's like the tactical way to do that? Fine, they can read the books, but how do you get over that anxiety or that unknowingness?
The answer is you should do it. Doesn't matter if it's free or paid or whatever. Like, so what I always tell for people when it comes to building up, there's a hierarchy I've always looked at, which was, if I want to get to a certain baseline level, I need to make sure that I have the respect of my peers that I interact with on a day-to-day basis. If I get to that next level, the next level is the people that are my superiors or whatever in my industry, if I can garner their respect. The top level is the people that I've always looked up to. If I can garner their respect, I've now reached that threshold that I wanted to. But it starts with some of those free interactions. It starts with doing some of those events that you can just because you want to do that, right? Because I love getting fitness information out. I'm going to do a free workshop and invite coaches in because I want them to do that. And I think that a fundamental issue we run into right now is everyone's looking for a paid event. It's not all a paid event. Sometimes investing your time is the best thing that you can do. So when I talk to personal trainers, I say find a local physical therapy unit that you can shadow in and see what's going on from the rehabilitation aspect of things. But I want to make money during that. Well, then they're not going to hire you because they don't want to pay to have someone sit around and watch and learn. But you can give your time to do that. You can do a free course for people to garner their information so they look at you as a reliable source of information. So I think you have to start to put yourself out there in that situation, and that's the fundamental thing that people do. So it started with me getting respect from my peers on the training floor and knowing that I work my tail off. Then it garnered to getting respect from executives in Equinox and looking at me and what I was doing and practicing, to winning awards with Equinox. And then when I'm invited to do lectures for Dr. Brad Schoenfeld, who's the foremost leading researcher on muscular hypertrophy, those are the events where I'm like, okay, Brad Schoenfeld knows that I care about this. Dr. Andy Galpin is a friend and knows I care about this. Foremost leaders in the fitness industry. That's when you've gotten to that level of going, okay, I know that I've put in the work and I earned my spot of what I wanted to.
Yeah, I think that's the nugget. That what you said is what I've observed in people, and on our team we talk about this as folks are trying to like move on up, is when you talk about like the paid event thing, I'm always like fascinated. I'll get like young people, like we get resumes all the time. Yale, chief resident at Harvard, all the time. These are sitting on my desk. And I'm like, they're asking like, okay, just the first 3 questions they'll ask me, I'll know if they're a right fit or not. And it's like early, you want to kind of learn early, earn later, right? And understand that right now, actually that sacrifice is not even a sacrifice. You're going to learn. You're getting paid the most valuable currency, which is being around people who've done it, building a network. And it's just a complete upside down paradigm. I'm always shocked that people don't get it, but I think that's the ticket. And then Kenny, if you could share a little bit about your journey's been pretty wild. Like you mentioned the expo that you have, which I learned about recently. I've seen expos in other industry, but what you've done is it's pretty singular. But before you can kind of get to that, if you could talk a little bit about the pure business side of things, where you took a passion, right, fitness, and then you went into the hardcore like payroll, real estate, like market, all the crap that a lot of people deal with, but you did it successfully. When 92% of businesses fail, you're able to do 1, 2, 3, and then these spin-offs in the form of executable. Can you talk about the highlights of that journey?
Sure. Well, right off the bat, I mean, I'll be the first one to say that I've failed a lot. And if you're not willing to fail a lot, then don't do it. I really just felt that this is always something I wanted to do. Since I was a kid, I loved being in the gym. It was the one thing, yeah, I was kind of a screw up in school. Really didn't do that well. I was an art major in college, so I kind of always just enjoyed this stuff, right? Like I enjoy art, I enjoy being in the gym, and like we said before, even about fitness, like kind of parents kind of guide you in the wrong direction. I think we all come from a generation where it's like, go get a blue collar job and do what you're supposed to do and retire when you're 65 and after that die, you know? But for me, I wanted to do what I wanted to do. I had kind of always danced to the beat of my own drummer. And there was a lot of times like he was very successful at Equinox. I wasn't, you know? And I was like, well, if they're not going to move me up the ladder at Equinox, I'll just create my own gym.
Build my ladder.
Yeah. And I just did my own thing. And, you know, the first couple of times it's like, I didn't go to Harvard Business School. I kind of went to the School of Hard Knocks, learned the hard way, screwed up, did it again, screwed up, did it again. But the one thing I've said to everyone after I screwed up and the partners I had and the jobs I've been fired from, I said, I go, at the end of the day, I'm going to keep doing this and I'm going to do it till I get it right. And maybe it's because I'm stubborn, maybe because I'm arrogant. I don't know what it is, but at the same time, it's like, I just kept trying and trying till I did it the right way. So the first two, I really didn't do that successful. I was doing all the components that you would think to do right. You know, I could hire really good people. I could run a class. I could create kind of culture really well. But it wasn't until I had it on my own that I could really kind of explore what I needed to do. So when I opened up my gym 4 years ago in New York and then opened this, it's kind of been, yeah, like more of the shining moment. And then with the event, it's like, well, we tried this year and let's try this next year and we'll try this. And I was willing to invest my own money. So I think when when brands, you know, like Adidas and Celsius and Reebok and all these people that I've had the opportunity to work with, I'm like, I'm putting in my own money. Everything in this event is on my credit card. So if I fail, it's on me. So if you're willing to take the risk with me and jump in on this, let's go. So I think, just like you said, volunteering your time, the amount of events that I've gone to that I pay to go to, whether it's one of Andy Galpin's events or Luca Hocevar or Gabrielle Lyons, you know who's sitting in the crowd every time? Me. I'm there. And these are like, all right, this guy's legit. He paid $2,000 to come to my event. He paid for the VIP experience. He's there. And I genuinely want to be there. No one's telling me to go. You know, sometimes I have to tell the coaches, oh, go to this, go get this education. I've been to every kettlebell certifications, weightlifting certification, endurance certification. I love it. So I've just kind of found myself in this because I genuinely love it. A lot of people, when I hear trainers say, like, I love training. I was just explaining to him about how I have this whole line of shirts coming out, and, you know, kind of our mantra for the gym is dying in the gym. I'm going to die in a gym. I want to be training people in a gym. I train my youngest client's 3, who's here right now. My oldest client's 83. I love training everybody. I love teaching people what I know. And I want to be able to be as healthy as I possibly can to the last day I can so that I die in a gym. And no one's told me that. No one's taught me that. I think that's just who I am. And I'm blessed to be that way. And when we first became trainers, it wasn't cool. If you were out at a bar and said you're a trainer, most girls would think you're a loser.
Sure.
Right? Now in 2015, 2016, now it's sexy and cool to be a trainer. Now every girl with a fake tits and a good ass is online and they're the best trainer in the world. You know, so it's like we kind of came up through the system, did what we had to do. We made mistakes, and now we're where we are, and we're a little bit on the older side of it. But I think, and that's why, like you were saying with Brad Schoenfeld and different people that I admire in the space, it's like you have to pay homage to the people. I wrote in a notebook, like you were saying before, I wrote in a notebook 10 years ago, if I could share the stage and be respected by the people that I admire, then I've won. And that's all I've ever said. And now I just got off the phone with Chris Hinshaw, who's going to do our event this year. I admire him. When I first started hearing his name doing CrossFit, I'm like, this guy is like a next level endurance coach. He understands the human body and performance better than anybody else I've ever heard talk about it. I go, I need to work with him. So I went to his seminars and I went to his shows. You just have to be in it to win it. You can't be half in and half out. You got to be in the game to play the game.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's incredible. And when you're talking, Kenny, I think the thing that I see in my experience that triangulates with what you said and what David said is a lot of people are like, all right, I have this vision, I have this idea. Like for you or me to say one day I want to do X is not unique. Everybody has that. The question, I find a lot of people like measure too much or calculate too much. They're like, but how? Wait, I don't get it. You're telling me to do this, but how does that lead to this, that? And just jumping in and understanding that your calculus is going to be wrong if you try to do the math before you start. You actually have to get 30 questions wrong to get the next 30 right. Just go in.
Yeah, I don't think David set out to be David. David did everything that was right for David and became this guy that now businesses seek him out and want to learn from him. Like he just did everything he knew that was right, that felt good to him, that he knew would get him to the next level. And now he's at this echelon where everybody's like, you'll see younger guys who are like, I want to be like him. I want to charge a gym $50,000 to be, I want to be a consultant. You have no expertise. How the fuck are you going to be a consultant for anybody? Yeah. He's done all the shit. He's done the work. That's why he's there. You can't just say you want what he has, having never done the shit he's done.
Yeah, it's also, but that's the fitness mentality that we were talking about before, right? So I always call it the JG Wentworth mentality. It's my money and I want it now, right? Like you start in January and you're like, I haven't worked out for 47 years. I'm gonna start with the Navy SEAL workout. Yeah. It's like, you haven't worked out ever. Yeah. And you think that you're a Navy SEAL right now? So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that want these things. And the fact is, like, listen, especially when it comes to training, academia didn't do any help to that. I mean, my mentor, Dr. Sean Arndt, is one of the best exercise physiologists in the country. Not by bias, but by statistics. But in my degree at Rutgers, they never suggested that I be a personal trainer with my exercise physiology degree. Because if you go on Glassdoor, it's like you can make $40,000 a year. I've never made $40,000 a year as a trainer. But it was one of those things like, well, it's something I want to do, and I'm going to make money doing it. So I've had my hand in a lot of different things for fitness, but it's because it's something I genuinely care about. So to Kenny's point, like, I'm not looking for the retirement plan at 65 years old to then go to the diner 3 times a week, and that's about it. Like, I care about health and fitness, and I can't wait to be the 75, 80-year-old guy in a tracksuit training people still, because it's what I love to do.
Yeah. I remember when I told my father, I was like, yeah, I'm going to go all in. I'm going to be a trainer. And he's like, well, what are you going to do for money? I was like, well, hopefully be a good trainer.